you haven't been recording. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were. Oh,
Oh,
okay. Okay. Go ahead.
all right, coach. It's happy to have you on again since
Thank you.
uh I just figured out like a lot of people in Taiwan and China are actually huge fan of yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'd love
And
to. I'd
and one
love
of
to
my
go.
mentor
Have them bring me over.
we'll try to do that. We'll try to and one of my
Yeah.
mentor, uh the legendary track coach Dan Pfaff is he said you're also his mentor. So it's really like my honor to
Uh,
have you on again.
okay. Okay.
All right, so if we go back to like the two podcasts like we had before, it was
Yeah.
before my season starts, and you gave me some advice, and it actually helped me a lot in terms of like uh managing injury or like managing like soft tissue compared to other team we have like a better success of all those. So um I want to start by asking you like we kind of talked about this before, but still like there's more and more uh focus. People are more talking more about fascia training.
Fashion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fascia. Like, how can we train fascia? There's different way to
Yeah.
train fascia.
Mhm.
Like, I know we kind of talk about this, but still, can you like share your thoughts on like this overall fascia training fascia, this
Yeah.
topic?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're training the body. Fascia is tissue in the body that helps give, well, it helps give integrity to joints, holds the muscles, and that. You can't isolate and train fascia. When I do a dumbbell rotational snatch, I'm working fascial swings. I have to have integrity in that. So it's again, it's another buzzword that sounds and now you can go to a fascial training workshop, and we do all these uh, uh, um, foam rolling tissue. And if the people who've done the landmark research in terms of application are the Steccos, Stecco, Italian family. There's the dad, uh, a daughter and a son, and they've done dissection and and all of that. And there are different types of fascia, but we cannot specifically target and train fascia. And they also showed, I was sitting next to Franz Bosch in Scotland about 8 years ago. They also showed that these manual techniques and these various techniques that it's superficial. You cannot realign the fascia. It's just such dense. Just go to the butcher shop and look at fascia on a carcass of a sheep or and that. So we train the whole body to synchronize and connect to produce and reduce force. And proprioception, and there are proprioceptors, in the joints, in the very, the different Golgi tendons, all of that, that help give quality to the movement. So to try to target specific, uh, fascia, it's a little bit like core training. What's the core? I mean, all training is core training. If I pick my 5-year-old granddaughter up, I pick her up and she's growing just as we talk, and I hold her a little bit too far away from my body. Boy, I feel it right away. Where do I feel it? Through my low back and through my center. So, my answer is, I've given a long-winded answer, is again, marketing. It's marketing. It's not sound. It has no sound basis in. I don't like to necessarily say research, but in research and in really good practice. Let's put it that way.
Nice, nice. All right, so you mentioned like you mentioned proprioceptor, which is another topic. Like I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
starting to get focused, but still people don't talk about it a lot. And I know we kind of mentioned like Dr. David Tibero is kind of like one of the best in this topic,
Yeah.
but but I want to talk about more like a training side of things in terms of like training athletes, because we both know that you're not gonna like in terms of like training elite, high level elite athlete, you're not gonna get like 30 minutes like do
No.
all this, that. You probably only get 5 minutes to figure it out, try and error. Works, it works. If it doesn't work, you're never
Gone.
gonna see him again. So talk to me about like this proprioception, this kind of topic.
Well, it should be inherent in a program. Okay. I mean, the body, it's not a switch that you turn on and turn off. Now you can do things that have maybe higher proprioceptive demand, but that's not like creating artificial environments by standing on a Bosu ball or, doing things like that. Some of those things are more appropriate at low level and rehab in that. And for old guys like me, maybe to work on my balance. But remember, in movement, you're off one foot, you're on the other foot. And so you can create a proprioceptively, I call it enriched environment. So you do a simple thing like we're doing lunges today, and as one of your basketball players, we're going to do side lunges, which is important. But I've got a belt on him with a stretch cord pulling him that's trying to pull him straight ahead, and he's trying to move side to side. So now that heightens proprioceptive demand, coordinative demand. Okay. But I think you have to be careful with this idea that you're, and I did this, I made this mistake where I just went overboard using creating artificial proprioceptively demanding environments, more unstable surfaces, that kind of stuff. And again, like you said, very seldom do we have unlimited time with athletes, and people don't understand this. At the professional level, sometimes you have 20 minutes, sometimes you have 5 minutes. So you've got to really make a decision what's gonna help make the athlete better. Obviously, injury prevention is always a subtext, so to speak. And the way I think about it, and in my new book and in the athletic development book, I call it a performance paradigm. You think about it this way: you have force reduction, which would be deceleration, eccentric component, goes to force production, which is what we see and what we measure. And in the middle, and this isn't 100% scientifically correct, but it's a good way to conceptualize it. In the middle, between those, I have proprioception, which is joint sense in that. And the way I say it really should be coordination more than proprioception. It lends quality to the movement. And we tend to focus, when you have a strength coaching approach, we tend to focus on force production. How high you can jump, how much you can bench, how much you can squat. Now, there's a whole, in the last 5 or 6 years, these guys have really focused on deceleration and force reduction. That's great, but see again, and it's elegant research. They're good people, but they've zeroed down on one component because force reduction. What do I do after I land? What do I do after I stop? Do I have to pick up a ball or whatever? So it goes to force production. So you really can't uncouple the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and the proprioceptive aspect is always there. You can in the background. I mean, this is on video now. Sorry, folks, I haven't shaved, but you can see. So
Yeah, I think it's exactly like what you said, because I think people are making it more complicated than it is.
mhm.
And I think this kind of go back to like the topic, like our previous conversation, like a lot of research are just not really worth to read it. I'm putting it that way.
Well, sometimes it is to stimulate your thought process, but see, somebody said to me today, "What's the research to back that up?" I says, "Well, how much time do you have? How far back do you want to go?" And there's a lot of, in that. But I have to take the research. I just printed out 30 pages of German exercise science and training conference, okay? And it's all abstracts. So I'll go through it and I'll read each one, circle the ones that I think might be relevant, go to the whole article. If I think that's relevant, then I'll contact the researcher. Okay. And I've done that for years and years and years. It was very expensive before WhatsApp and the internet because long distance phone calls to Germany or Taiwan or something like that were very expensive. But uh, remember the practitioner is always ahead of the researcher,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but that doesn't mean, and then there's first principles in terms of biomechanics and physiology and learning and that. I'm not refuting those, but to just do stuff to kind of be cute doesn't yield results. So
Good. All right. I want to talk about like, cause, uh, I want to go back a little and talk about proprioceptors, cause, or proprioception, cause, as the seasons go on, or like, I kind of noticed that like in the past few years, I feel like every time I like squat my athletes heavy or have them do like really heavy, tripod deadlift, the next 2 to 3 days, their shots are just not accurate.
took their legs away.
Yeah, and like, but if you ask them, they're like, "No, my legs are fine." The it seems like the coordination part just wasn't there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I mean, it's common, and see, and I think again. I think my opinion, so is that the strength part should be subservient to the skill. So some of it is uh, when you go heavy, with whom you go heavy, okay, and I know this seems backwards, but I don't know why I was thinking about this the other day with basketball because I went over to the Warriors and just visited. See, I would do some of that stuff if I were working with basketball again, and we did let's say we were going to do and I'm a big dumbbell snatch, and then we're going to do split squats, and then we're going to do maybe some jump squats, and then a little bit of core work, rotational stuff, and then I'd go out on the court and shoot an array of shots, right then, and that. Because the residual soreness, and I don't think the missing the shots or the shot being off is a matter of proprioception. I think it's more a matter of coordination and that. And then what did they do? Did they do the lifting session? And what happens in basketball and pro basketball and that? And then they go back to the room and watch TV and they're lying down and they're sitting down. They're not moving. So there's still that element of stiffness there. So I don't know. I don't think the source of it maybe is the actual workout. It is what leads into it and what leads out of it, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I want to make sure that that's underscored. Okay, what I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. Cause, yeah, like sometimes you can just see the coordination part, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But and it's kind of same when you have like back-to-back games and you can obviously see like on the second day they're like pretty fatigued. When you watch them shoot, the coordination wasn't there. So,
yeah.
if it in your mind, like how would you handle that? Or is there a
Oh
way
yeah,
to like uh I don't know, like reactivate like their brain to like help
yeah,
them be better on when they're fatigued, especially the coordination
yeah.
part.
Well, okay, boy, let's unpack this now. So baseball plays back to back every huge amounts of time, right? There's no, and now granted. Maybe the physical demands in certain positions aren't as high. The catcher is, and the middle infielders are quite high. So to me, I've got back-to-back games. All right, let's look at basketball now. I'm watching the Warriors. I'm watching all these teams that came in and played back-to-back. What did you do before the first game to get ready for the game? And you know you're going to play back-to-back games. Okay. The first thing everybody talks about is you're going to be tired. You get talked into being tired. All right. So that's a mental part of it. I really believe this. Instead of saying, okay, the coach getting together with you and all the staff and saying, all right, we're not going to sit Vern Gambetta out, but we're gonna strategically substitute a little bit. What do you do in the shoot around the morning before the first game? Okay. So now, is there travel involved between the two games? So it's really important that immediately after the first game, that I would like to see them do a reset, just some coordination, some active stretching, and then contrast hot and cold showers, okay, when they get in, okay? Then they get on the bus, maybe they go on the plane, something like that. The next morning, if there isn't a shoot around, you should have three guys at a time. You have 12 or 15 on the team. You have three guys at a time, and you take them through a 15-minute wake up priming session to get the motor running again. Preferably around 11 o'clock if it's a 7 o'clock game. Okay. And then what you do is the warm up, or which I call preparation period, or some people like to call it activation in before the game is adjusted so it's more brisk and up tempo. Okay, so that I'm not looking at two games, two individual games. I'm looking at a block of time with two competitions in that block of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So and then it's making it. Then you have to make it fit each individual athlete. Okay, two. Who has really good recovery ability, who doesn't, and then start experimenting and finding out. You see the number 8 jersey back there. That's cricket, okay, and she's the best in the world. And we have strict routines when it's test matches, and that. So she governs it because she's there. I'm not there all the time. Does she do the priming workout in the morning of an afternoon or evening match, or does she do it midday? She just had a 1 day match earlier this week. She did it the night before. And gets up and is ready to go. So it's a matter of your job, my job is to work out a routine with the athletes. Now, there's a lot of things in sport that in our role, we can't control. But I think that's part of our job is to educate the coaches as to how we can minimize the effect of back-to-back games. It just shouldn't be as profound and as fatiguing as we make it if we take for use of a better term, holistic, a wider look at it. Okay, and we use medicine ball, explosive stuff to stimulate the nervous system. Okay, not proprioception, but to stimulate the nervous system, which means a lot less. So, and I've seen it, I've done it. I've done it, in pro baseball, in international basketball and tournaments and things like that. I mean, you don't, it's Olympic Games, it's the World Championship, it's the qualifying, zone qualifying. My God, you're going to play 5 games well, hopefully you play 5 games, in what, 8 days or something like that. So you've got to be prepared for that. And also that demands rehearsal, too. So, does
So,
that help?
yeah. So let me ask you this. So does that mean like on the second day of the priming session, you do like something that's like even faster to wake their nervous system up
Shorter,
and
shorter, sharper, faster.
yeah, more sharper or more rotation and fast stuff to wake their nervous system up
Yeah,
on the second day.
yeah,
Okay, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah. But the key to that, see, and this is where you have to look at the interplay, and this is why I try to get rid of the terms warm up and cool down. So warm up is preparation and cool down is reset. So what I do immediately after the first game is reset the nervous system. So that can be individual or team wise, whether it's stretching. Some people are going to respond to more hold the stretch. Some people it's going to be more ballistic, that kind of stuff. And I'm not a believer in cold baths. I think I think we're finding out more and more that those are not effective. I would not do a cold bath. I've noticed I said I would do a contrast, hot and cold shower, as hot as you can get and as cold as you can get, and focus kind of on your butt, your low back, maybe upper back, and that kind of stuff to stimulate blood flow. But taking a cold plunge, to me that shocks the system negatively, and it makes recovery even harder. You're going to be more stiff the next day and stiff afterwards than you would. So,
Nice, nice, nice. All right. So, um, as I was like watching through like different podcasts that you did, uh, I remember we talked about like periodization before,
uh-huh.
and there's this term, uh, all right, don't hate me for asking this. I don't know how we're gonna feel about this topic, but uh,
All right.
as sports science, technology are growing, there's this term acute chronic workload
Yeah.
ratio.
Yeah.
And like personally, I feel like uh this is how I feel about it. Everybody respond to training differently.
Yeah.
Everybody respond every like yeah, the way I respond to like lifting heavy and the way you respond to lifting heavy are different. The way I respond to speed and the way you respond to sprinting are is gonna be
Absolutely.
different. So how are you gonna like use this to tell me, oh, he had higher injuries, he needs something else? But but at the same time, like what are your thoughts on like how are you gonna handle like the overall total volume in terms of like a week,
Yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks? How are you gonna know like uh should we pull him back or not?
Well, let's go back to the acute chronic workload thing. First of all, the original study by Gambett is flawed, significantly flawed statistically, and I refer all the listeners to look up Franco and Pellizieri. Franco is a colleague, a really good professional. He's a PhD. He has forgotten more than we know about stats. He's actually been a performance coach for two Serie A teams in Italy. He was worked with a Tour de France team, and then before he went to Australia, was at a research orthopedic research institute in Switzerland. So he has impeccable, and so the acute chronic workload thing is flawed, and it's led us to this whole idea of you know training load and sitting people out, and all of that kind of stuff. Instead of, like you said, I'm going to look at rolling over cycles. So it can be 7 days, 10 days, whatever. So I'm going to look at my whole season and I'm going to look at cycles and I'm going to notice I say try to predict the work at least 2 cycles in advance, okay, in terms of the distribution of what I'm going to do in terms of physical preparation. But then within the cycle, it's day to day, okay? I've got data, which you have tons of now on the internal and external load, which I don't like that distinction either. It's load. It's It's competition stress on the body, and I see you've got it on me, and I see that man, this game or this match really taxed him. So then I've got to adjust the work accordingly. That's why we're coaches, you know. But we've got data, reams of data that we're not using. We're using it to create a medical model, which is what we can't do. The medical model says, "Oh, don't do this, don't do that, you might get hurt." Our job is to put the five best players on the floor that you can. It's a performance model. So I have to continually work to find what my players can do that prepares them for that game. So I know I tend to oversimplify, and I have that's another thing I've gotten really frustrated with this that it's and this is not an attack on Gabbett, but for whatever reason, people are still using his models and they're flawed. They're flawed. And it's been proven, time and again. But I think part of it is we haven't it's seductive, right? Because you've got internal load, heart rate, all of those things, and then you've got external load, um, accelerations, meters run, and that kind of stuff. Where we need to take a step back and look at the relevant factors that we are measuring, and maybe some we can't, that are contributing to that athlete's performance day to day, week to week, month to month. And the other thing is, don't forget the value of observation. Okay. It's easy to get wrapped up on numbers, but how did they achieve the numbers? And yes, that's subjective, but ultimately you're with the athlete, you know that, so you've got to work on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Nice, nice. All right. Uh, can you talk a little bit more about like the rollover concept, just so like I
Oh
can like
yeah, okay.
understand
I
it
see.
better?
I see. Yeah, yeah. I use that, and it's so I'm looking at um the next cycle dependent on this cycle. So I'm that's what I mean by rollover. And I even and Dan did this years ago too, and we did it. I even like 3 day rollovers where I've got X day, Y day, Z day. Okay. And then I bring X day, Y day, Z day. But that's just, whatever. So that's the idea. I'm constantly, I'm not making abrupt changes. I'm rolling over what they're doing and looking at cumulative training. If anything, as you're talking in season now, as the season progresses, I'm probably, reducing volume. Probably won't reduce frequency of training, but definitely reducing volume. So does that clarify that?
Yeah. So if we go back to like track, so is it like
Always go back to track.
so is it like some uh for those who didn't really understand like the uh well people did use different terms when it talks about rollover, but like let's just use like let's say Monday acceleration
Yeah,
and the day one acceleration, day
yeah,
two max speed, day three
yeah,
recovery. I don't want to say Monday because that doesn't make sense. But
yeah. Or day one, day two, day three, or
yeah,
or recovery or something.
yeah. Day one, day two, day three, three different topics. And it kind of go like use that to like basketball. Like maybe day one is hard, day two is medium, day three is low, and that keep rolling over. Is that what you're like referring to?
Yeah, yeah. But I
Nice.
I I think well, I think you roll over day to day, but I think you can roll over week to week. The thing about fixtures list, you've got a fixtures list. You've got 82 games, you've got 140 games, you've got 11 games or something like that. So the first thing you do is and then you've got travel and you've got home. and you've got time zone differences. Okay, so that's all part of your planning process before the season started. So you're doing the best you can to have a crystal ball and predict. Certain things are predictable. Okay, certain things are unpredictable. You're in, I don't know, you're in Michigan now with this storm. I was thinking today there's a swim meet somewhere and they're going to get trapped in an airport, So what do you account for things like that? Or you're going to have to stay overnight when, you had a competition and now you have to stay overnight or maybe sleep in the airport, So you do your best to anticipate because remember, you're an athlete 2 hours a day and it's that 24-hour athlete concept. So we have to take that into account. So yeah.
Cool, cool. That's awesome.
And well, one thing I was going to say, as you get to know an athlete, and usually it takes about 6 weeks, I like to rate their recovery ability. Okay, how well do they recover from the various types of training sessions that we do? Okay, and it's subjective. I'll ask them, God, that just killed me. That was an 8. Or how was that workout yesterday? Or oh, that was a 2. Well, I thought it was like a butt kicker, and pretty soon you get a sense of how well they recover, the recovery ability, and that's coupled with adaptability. Okay. So the interplay between those two. And again, we have data to support that, but it's communication, it's emotional intelligence on our part to be able to. Some of that is, I mean, working like with swimmers, I would watch the workouts. I'd see their faces after various sets, and then they would come over to me, or I would the next day, and we would have basically a little 2-minute discussion about, and then I might adjust the workout, so. But remember, so you've got recovery ability coupled with adaptability. Okay.
Nice, nice. All right. So, the next topic I kind of want to talk about the overall like the pro organization are starting like brought in these like biomechanics lab biomechanics to like use 3D motion capture force play to I don't know try to prevent injury.
Yeah.
What are some like things like you think we should look into from just your experience?
What's the company in Santa Barbara that does all the NBA draft picks and all of
Oh,
that?
P3.
P3, yeah. I've visited there. I just talked to there, and trying to predict injury is like trying to time the stock market, you know? It's why did Jimmy Butler tear his ACL three days ago, Like here's a guy that hard worker stuff. Shit happens, man. He landed wrong. His knee went into valgus. You could, on that. So it doesn't hurt to do as long as it's not too artificial an environment to see how they jump. I don't care about force platform information. The biomechanic, I want to see the sequencing, how they jump, how they run, how they stop, how they accelerate and reaccelerate, because that can help us to maybe find some ways to help them. The force platform stuff they're doing. First of all, they're not force platforms. They're scales. They're very expensive scales. You're not getting shear force. So now P3, I think when they go out there, they use actual force platforms. But then again, having 50 years of experience, going back to the late 70s with force platforms, I'm not sure always what it tells us as a training tool, as a research tool. It helps us to understand what's going on, and then maybe we can adapt it. So I love uh, uh, biomechanical analysis of running, jumping, stopping, starting, But the problem is it's a pretty sterile environment that you do it in. It doesn't have all the noise of the nine other players on the court or whatever. So, but use it, use it appropriately, I guess. So, but the force platform stuff that everybody's doing, the valve stuff and all that, it's bullshit. I'm sorry. It's just a random number generator. So,
Yeah.
excuse my French. I don't know how that
No.
translates into Chinese, but it's a waste of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you say.
And very expensive. Very expensive.
All right, so you brought up like knee valgus, which is one of the one of the injury mechanism for like ACL injury. And I
Mhm.
think people, correct me if I'm wrong, because if you talk to like a physical therapist, they always say, "Oh, their glutes are weak." So when they move, then
Oh,
they when
baloney.
they shoot a ball, they knee go valgus. Oh, they have higher ACL tear. I'm like, I'm like,
Take 3 minutes of one of your games and isolate and look at how many times the knee has to go into valgus to perform certain movements. And sometimes like as soon as they replayed Jimmy Butler's injury the other night, I said he tore his ACL. You could see, first of all, he was in extreme pain, but but we could go back 2 minutes before he went up for a rebound, landed the same way, and didn't tear his ACL. The knee has to go into valve. There's nothing happens in straight, rigid lines. So it has to go into valves. Yeah, your glutes, it's not your glutes are weak. Your glutes are not integrated and coordinated well to help reduce and produce force. That's the perspective. So it's not, the glutes are all, if the glutes aren't firing, you have muscular dystrophy. You're going to collapse on the floor. I mean, it's true, and yet how often do you hear, especially physical therapists, now doctors, well, his glutes aren't firing. Well, then he's walking, his glutes are firing, but it's the coordination is not correct, So yeah,
what
it's
about people talk about false step. What about false step?
don't get me going. We need to do a 2 hour thing on this. Sometimes false steps occur. Okay. And the Euro step is a false step. Technically, you're stepping back. Uh, and there's this guy, Lee Taft, and these other people that look, I come back to track. I've got a strong leg and I got a weak leg. Okay. I know my strong leg is my left leg. If I'm gonna if I'm gonna get up and get in a stance and I'm here, a defensive stance, and I step backward to go forward, I'm already one step behind. So we work on distribution of weight so that when I go, I just get my center of gravity outside my base of support, lean, fall, run, and go. That's all I'll say. You don't teach false step. Now, I made the mistake sometimes of trying to take false step away from certain athletes that did it naturally, and I don't want to 100% say I regret it. I would look at it much, much closer with that particular athlete now than I did then. I was too absolute. But I'm not going to teach false step by any way, shape, or form, or plyo step, or whatever you want to call it. So
So it just like I'll say, but it happens all the time in playing basketball or like any
sometimes,
sport.
yeah, sometimes you do it to gain a technical advantage, sure. But they're trying to say it's faster.
No.
No, 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 no. And you'll see running backs it do it as a timing thing. but not to be faster as a timing mechanism to gain depth, and then the quarterback hands it off, you know. So again, I'm not gonna teach it. I'm not gonna teach it. You know, it's as simple as that. And look, I mean, I don't know if you guys have a game tonight. The Warriors will play tomorrow night. I'll watch. I watch for things like that. I mean, when I watch the game, and it's yeah, it happens. It happens. You know, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's necessary to gain depth to like in basketball to get a proper crossover. You got the ball in your hands, sure, you know. So movement. I mean, I think the key thing here is to understand movement. You know, and what are the appropriate necessary movements that when I play on the court or the pitch or whatever that I have to do to uh, to be able to technically execute the skills of the game.
Yeah, yeah. So, you're not gonna teach it, but are you gonna like teach them not to do it though?
Well, that's what I said. I'm pretty absolute about it, but in my old age, I guess I'm mellowing. You know, so if it's in baseball, uh, like stealing a base or fielding a ground ball, if I take a false step, I'm not going to get to the ball. So we spent a lot of time working on their stance and weight distribution so that, you know, relative to the ball, so we did try to take it away. Yeah.
Wait,
It depends.
so is it kind of like because this is kind of go back to like track, so kind of teach them different position of acceleration. Like, is that what you're saying?
Well, well, yeah, I mean, you're baseball. Look, I'm facing home plate and I've got to run that way. Okay. So how do there were some organizations that taught a false step. Okay. And we didn't, you know, and it was a lean fall run and go. And we did 40 years ago, we did research and you look at your center of mass, you take a false step, go into second base. What you lose on that first step, you never gain. What we gained on the first step, we kept gaining, you know, on that. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's about mechanics of acceleration. The mechanics of acceleration are the same. You've got to create a positive shin angle. You've got to get your center of gravity out over the base of support, in front of the base of support, or outside the base of support, sorry. You know, and then rise accordingly. Yeah. So it's just
Nice, nice.
simpler simpler on track, but and then it's, you know, and then it was interesting because uh, you know, I think I told you before, I played American football and then I started competing in decathlon afterwards. Well, my sprint start was left foot forward. Okay. But to get 8 steps to the first hurdle, I had to put right foot forward. And it was really interesting. And then I'll never get one day, I was teaching starts all day in school and to the kids. And I went out that day and I said, I'm going to try doing sprint starts with my right foot forward. We were doing 30s, just 30 meters. And it felt so good. I switched, you know, because the idea, my left leg is definitely stronger, but I was more coordinated with my right leg forward in the blocks, you know. So it got me in a better position at 10, 15 meters, you know. So you got to put everything, the moral of the story is you got to take a step back, put everything in context now instead of zeroing in narrower and narrower, you know. So,
All right, I'm actually doing the opposite you suggest because I'm actually gonna ask you like maybe zooming in a question that's gonna zoom in a lot, but like you mentioned, there's a leg that's gonna be more strong. There's a leg that's gonna be more coordinated.
yeah,
But if we could talk about basketball, like a lot of times these guys are like right-handed.
yeah, that's
So
a leg.
that's just how they're gonna how they're gonna cut. Are you saying like if we train them differently, probably could expose them like different movement variation? There's like different solution.
Yes. Yeah, I think in the off season that You can do some, side and diagonal lunges, lateral bounds, things like that as lead-ins to be able to more effectively cut maybe left or at an angle, pivot more effectively. Sure, sure. I mean, that's what we do. Not necessarily to change, but to make them more effective, because you're not gonna you're not gonna play in the NBA if you can't at least go both directions. I mean, there's a player, he was their first round pick, Padinsky's third year. He's left-handed, and it used to be a left-handed player would stick out like a sore thumb. And I was watching him last night. Yeah, last night. Yeah, and you forget that he's left-handed. You know, it's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, he has to shoot left-handed, but his in terms of side to side, rebound, a lot of things like that. So
All
that's
right.
and that's the levels of the game discriminate more and more as you get higher and higher if you don't have that range of skills and motion, don't you? Don't they? Yeah, yeah.
All right, last question before I let you go. You mentioned like you watch like games a lot. And I know, I mean, as a I know I hate the word strength coach, but people
Yeah, it's
use it,
okay.
so I use
All right. Yeah, yeah.
as a strength coach, like our job is to like watch, like I'm at least my job is to like watch basketball games, right? But with 50 years of experience, like nowadays, if I watch basketball outside like our games, it's kind of getting like bored of like you know what you're looking at. I know like oh I'm watching like certain athlete move and like how they like change direction or something like that. But you got 50 years of experience. You got 50 years of like watching how athlete move. Like what are some stuff like you're looking into? Like why are you not getting bored?
Well, yeah, I mean, the boredom factor in baseball is very boring. I don't, but when I, I wish I could, I wish I could watch more practices. Okay, for starters, let's say with the Warriors, I'm here, and I guess if I asked Ron, I could go occasionally. I try to, and I'm not always. Sometimes I just like I watched the national championship football game with Indiana. I was an offensive lineman. I watched the offensive line. I watched how they pass blocked, how they all of that kind of stuff. So I was looking for specific footwork patterns and things like that. And in basketball, like for example, now I'm just looking. There's Gary Payton Jr. is he's seventh man or something like that. The guy can jump out of the gym, and he comes in, and as soon as he comes into the game, things happen. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. And I've kind of gotten interested. If I were with the Warriors or something, or I had access, I'd like to look at I'd like to look at game tape and practice tape and look at the information that you guys have of what he's doing, because he does a lot of things well that I'm not even sure that people realize what an impact he has. So, yeah, I mean, it can get boring, but if I were you, I'd just say I'd pick an individual player and make a checklist and, delineate all the movements and rate him, just make a little thing, rate him one, two, three, one being terrible and three being good. And then, just to tune you into the things and then the things and what can you improve? See, that's the challenge. So I look at it and I go, I don't know. I'm just watching the players on TV. I've seen a few of them, live and that kind of stuff. And so I really don't know until you get to know the player. And that helps you be more informed in terms of what you're looking at in a game. So that
Nice,
makes
nice,
sense. Okay.
nice. I love
Yeah.
this. I love this. All right. Like I mentioned earlier, no, that's the last question I have for today. Like I mentioned earlier, like like a lot of coaches in Taiwan really likes you. And so where can they find your new book?
Yeah, Hammer Media. Go to hammermedia.com. You can buy it there. It is out now. I don't have a copy yet, but it is there. So it's called Building the Complete Athlete, and it's a lot of this. That'd be great. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, promote the book for me. Yeah,
Yeah, of
I'll tell
course.
everybody about it. So that's good. So very good. Well, I may have told you this before, and for the listeners in Taiwan, I had two early athletic heroes,
Oh yeah, you told me about this.
C.K. Yang
Yeah, yeah.
and Rayford Johnson. They were teammates at UCLA and vied for the gold medal in 1960. So and then
Yeah, and you shared
yeah,
the story with it on another podcast. That was awesome.
yeah, C.K. Yang was a
Yeah.
great athlete, great athlete. So it's interesting. Right, right. Well, get me a gig down there. I'll come down. I'd
I'll
love to.
try. I'll try. I'll do my best.
All right. No, I'm kidding. So buy the book, you guys, and thank you again for having me on. It was a
Thank you.
fun discussion.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So, okay.